Okay, Patience, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Awesome. So let me start by reading off your bio.
Okay.
Patience Schutz is a retreat facilitator, keynote speaker, and licensed marriage and family therapist who blends human development, attachment theory, interpersonal neurobiology, and systemic psychology to create deeply transformational experiences. With thousands of clinical hours and global fieldwork, she designs retreats that strengthen emotional intelligence, belonging, and human potential in leaders and teams. Patience is known for her compassionate presence, experiential methods, and her core belief that individual growth happens best when it's done together. She's done work with people from traffic survivors in Cambodia to supporting YPO, EO, and Harvard Business School alumni. And welcome again, Patience. And I want to
You.
start with your name. Tell me about your name. That is a very unique name. First of all, is it your real name?
It is my real name, and I think that's part of the story of how I ended up here. My mother said she needed patience to have me, but the deeper truth, the more important part of that is I needed patience to have my mother. And part of my life, uh, childhood really, was not great. And so as a result of that and being a therapist and actually having a lot of therapy, that allowed me a patient presence and understand really about how people heal in their own ways, in different ways. And I think my name is part of my superpower. I am very
Mm,
patient. And if I don't have a result with a forum, an individual, etc., I patiently find a new entry point, a new way to help. So I think it's actually a really good bridge from where I started to where I am now and what I do.
I love it. And in Judaism, we say that the name of a person defines who they are, and mine is unfortunately means to judge. And oftentimes judge people, and I look at it more as discernment than judgment. Um, but let's switch gears real quick. And from my understanding and the research I've done, and having spoken to you, you are one of the best out there. Tell me a little bit why you think you're one of the best out there, and I think your bio did a good job of explaining it, but tell us what makes you wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. That feels strange for me to say. I'm wonderful. I don't think it's me. I really don't. I think, and as I reflect on how I do the work I do, I really believe it's from my academic background. That's a big piece of this, for sure. Let's speak first about forums. So, my background, my academic education is really around systems, people coming together. I have a relationship with myself, but I also have a relationship in a system, whether that's a family, a company, a forum. So, I think my background academically has played a part. And I have unique, I would say, life experiences, global, and I have said yes and raised my hands to a lot of experiences which have been profound, impactful, and I bring those outlier events or experiences or trainings also into forums. So maybe I am not wonderful, but I do believe it's a little bit of my education and a little bit of the things that I've done. So my whole background is not pretty cookie cutter. It's not. So where
Mm.
I lived, how I grew up, that whole experience, all the healing work, and then saying yes to a whole bunch of things out in the world, being very, very open-minded, having worked and traveled all over the world, I think it's influenced who I am as a facilitator. So I bring that embodied wisdom, taking little nuggets of wisdom that I've gathered over all these decades and maybe layering on the academic. That's my foundation, but then I think that makes me somewhat unique. I do.
So when you say system, are you referring to something like Dick Schwartz's work around internal family systems? And if you are referring to that or referring to another system, what system are you referring to?
Okay. I'm very familiar with Dick Schwartz's work. If I'm having a relationship with myself, that's IFS. That's how I'm processing my internal world, how I'm making sense of the world within me as I am by myself, right? But what I'm speaking to is that, and how am I in relationship, not just with myself, but in a relationship, in a system with others. So if it's a forum, let's say with 8 people, maybe there's a part of me, my protector part, feels very, very safe with one of my
And
forum
for
mates.
those listeners, IFS has these parts that show
Yeah,
up as opposed to our whole.
that's correct. Think of it as aspects of who I am.
Right.
Think of it as that way, right? So maybe I feel really safe. My protector part feels very safe with one or two or three of my forum mates. How I interact with them might be slightly different than how I interact with another forum mate, because another part of me gets triggered or rises into view unknowingly within myself in that relationship. So within a system of 8 people, I have a relationship to each and every person one-on-one, and I have a relationship to the whole system
Mm,
as well as the one with myself, who I
mm.
come in when I enter into that system. So yes, I think IFS is a piece of it. And it's also, so the other part of this is systems theory. That would go way back to early 1980s, Virginia Satir, family systems, object relations, attachment systems, all of that is a part of it as well. So I think in those lenses, and I think about forums and forum health and relational health from those systemic lenses. Yeah.
So it's, given your academic breadth of work, it reminds me of something my mom always said, given that she's an academic, that those who can't do teach. Can you relate to that at all?
Yes. And there's a difference between facilitate and teach, and I blend them in equal measure and when appropriate. So my style is generally do a little teach and then a little practice. Do a little teach, which is the facilitate, is the practice. Do a little teach and a little practice, because my hope is that what we do in forum, we can use across environments. So if I have an opportunity to learn something in forum, I don't want it specific to that experience and that system. I really want to be able to take that learning and that embody that new way of being. I want to be able to do that outside of that space in other relationships as a CEO or as a parent, as a child, as a friend, a sibling, etc. So I think there is importance around the teaching, and I do a little bit of both. And I love
Mm,
making teaching tools. I do it all the time, every
mhm.
week. I'm making new teaching tools, visuals. So to me, Howard Gardner's work, wonderful professor out of Harvard, he talks about multiple intelligence. And so I bring lots of ways of learning, which could be auditory, tactile, visual, kinesthetic. When I facilitate, I'm bringing all those ways and touch points for people to learn. So it isn't just a cognitive linear talk, teach, it isn't.
So I want to kind of go back to form and form health. Oftentimes form is a composite of individuals who did not agree to be together, but they're just kind of thrown in together. How, and that's like a family, right? You can't really, I'm not comparing form to family. I don't think that's the right comparison, but it is like a family. You don't choose your family members. How do you work in a system in which people may not necessarily have chosen to be a part of, or they haven't chosen or selected who is in with them?
Yeah. I actually think there's some overlap with this word family and forum. I do.
Mm,
Because they're systems and they're relational systems. We don't choose our family, and we often do not choose our forum. Forum officers or people who are putting forums together select uh, and put people together with lots of variations of the why. But regardless, to me, they're somewhat similar. I think where forums are more savvy or we have more tools for success is that we have shared agreements about how we're going to be together. We actually have a conversation. How do I want you to treat me? And how do you want me to treat you? Those are our agreement, our norms, our constitution. And within that document, there's a whole lot of data that we often don't talk about as a family. How are we going to negotiate conflict? Well, in forum, we have a process. I call it perspective sharing, YPO, or other forum spaces might call that issue clearing, but to me, that language isn't the best. Regardless, we have agreements in place that we talk about when we come together from the beginning, and we constantly review those agreements. We don't often do that or ever in a family. We don't have a process that we've agreed to. And I also think it's true about friendships. So I use a lot of F words: friends, families, forums, and firms. They're all relationships It's only in forum that we have an intentional conversation about how we're going to be together. And we also have essential needs in this relationship that we're placed in. So to me, the word forum isn't really what's happening. It's a relationship, and it's intimate because we agree to share vulnerably, and there has to be safety in place. But in order for that all to come together and allow those agreements to like flower, we have to understand there's essential things there, which are, will you be there when I need you? Will you show up? Really? Can I count on you? Do you expect me to change in some way? Do I have to be different than who I am in order for you to receive me? And in forum, in YPO forums in particular, we say we suspend judgment. So that's a piece of that. I'm okay as I am. I'm okay, you're okay, and you receive me as I am today, right? Do you understand that I'm flawed and amazing all at once? Like, do you see me? Do you value me? Like, those are just essential pieces of relationships, but they're talked about up front when we come together in forum. That's different than a family, different than a friendship. In a firm, we have HR, or we have some cultural things within companies that address those. But I think forum is very special because we actually intentionally talk about the quality of our relationship. How are we going to be together?
Mm. So one of the things you work on is belonging in a form. And I think we touched on it a little bit, but let's expand on that. And what does belonging in a form mean? And how do you create that? Because I like to say belonging is a two-way street. I feel like I belong and you feel like I belong. Otherwise, there's no belonging. So how do you address belonging specifically in a form?
It's always addressed. To me, it's critical, and it's something that is part of the entire meeting. It's not just a one-off part at the beginning or in the middle or in the end. It's part of the thread that creates the safety, which allows me to feel a sense of belonging and to share. But for me, what belonging is a visceral experience. It's something deep in my bones that I feel. I feel safe. I'm not vigilant. I don't have to wonder about your micro expressions. Are you judging me, or are you deeply listening? My whole body can be in calm neutral, not hyper or hypo arousal. I can truly be calm and
Mm-hmm.
collected because my body feels safe in that space. To me, that is the belonging experience. It's in my somatic sense. It's not from here. To me, it's something that connects to psychological safety. It connects to our agreements, and it connects to my deep understanding that we're committed to see things through to the end. So we understand, of course, there'll be conflict. That's normal and healthy, right? We have a process for that. Of course, there'll be a focus on feelings because that's what is the universal language of humans. So we need to come from that space, not the facts. All of that, and we share and we agree, we're going to be in a vulnerable conversation. That all connects to belonging. And I love Gabor Mate's very succinct summary, which is this. If my attachment needs are threatened, authenticity leaves. What does that really mean? If I feel attached, that's the belonging. I sense I belong and you sense I belong. I love your language. What that allows for really is for me to remove my mask, to be messy, raw, real, unfiltered, to say things that maybe don't make sense, to react in a way that I haven't thought through. It's not pretty, it's not packaged. If that happens, if my belonging needs are stable, then I can be truly authentic. But if I don't have this sense of belonging because my attachment need is threatened, then I'm going to pull back, withhold, share in the 90%, not be vulnerable, have my kimono closed. But to me, belonging is the thread and it's the fuel to the safety. And we have to really take into account what was my childhood like? Because I come with the totality of my lived experience. So maybe I didn't have a great childhood and my attachment was disorganized or anxiously attached in my childhood. Now I come rolling into this relationship that someone put me in with 7 other people. And of course, I'm going to show up in some ways that have a reflection of that early childhood experience, that relational experience that will come into play. So these to me are important parts that we would hopefully be talking about all the time.
So, it reminds me of a quick story that when I'm a moderator of two forums, and both in specifically in one that I started recently, um, I showed up very vulnerably, talked about my addiction, and then as a result, people were like, "Holy shit! Like this guy talked about this. I can talk about anything." Talk to me about how a facilitator does that, and how a facilitator is able to join a group they're not a part of, in order to establish credibility very quickly.
Facilitator would understand the depth of that question. Hopefully your audience can appreciate just what an important question you've asked. I'm just going to double tap on that. Because I need to join the system as an equal. I can't come in and stay above or below. I need to be an equal. I have to focus on co-regulating the system. That's the language I would teach, and that's the language I would use. And I think it's not psychobabble anymore. It might have been, 30 years ago, but with AI and Google and all that wisdom we have, I think most people have heard that term, but I explain it, which is all of us have the same chemicals in our body at the same time. And it could be curiosity, or it could be oxytocin, it could be love and affirmation, whatever, but there's a chemical piece to a feeling, and that belonging has a chemical component to that. And so when I come in as a facilitator, I'm very mindful from the beginning. I'm focused on empathy. I'm focused on having short storytelling, because that's how humans connect, through short 30-second, one sentence stories. And I kind of open the box to the layers of the vulnerable story sharing. So maybe the first story would be a little data. Here's some pieces about me, things that you could find out on LinkedIn, or if you followed me on Instagram, you would know I love hearts, right? That's not vulnerable. It's certainly not going to bond me with a forum. But then I talk about the truth about the truth. So the truth is, I grew up in Las Vegas. The truth is, my name is Patience. But the truth about the truth is, I grew up in a horrific scenario as a child. My mother was married 5 times. Every single man that she brought into my life was violent. And one of the fathers I had in my life for the longest time was a member of the Gambino family. I grew up in Old Vegas. And coming out of that family system where it was never safe impacted me in a lot of ways. Really was the fuel for me to go to school, to stay busy. But there was a point when it didn't serve me, that busyness, that academic space. It now hindered me. Like my sword was now my saboteur. And so right now, what I did was model what I'm talking about. I told you some facts, and then I told you some shorter truth about those facts. What I would do next with the forum is now talk about the feelings. So I'd put it all together. I wouldn't explain all this to them, but I would then say, and I feel, or I am proud or regretful. I'd add in the impact of those facts, and I'd lead with those feelings. By doing that, very quickly humans connect, because I feel what you feel. I understand what it feels like to feel disappointed, sad, rejected, misunderstood, right? So to me, a facilitator has to understand that they are entering a system. The system needs to, become disorganized and rearrange with this new human in it. And then the facilitator has to co-regulate the whole system and be the most vulnerable in the room and go first.
So I want to quickly touch on your practice, and what is it about you that people select you, because you don't do a lot of business development. So,
It's
yeah.
my bandwidth or the desire, but Yeah, it's not my deal.
All
My
good,
deal.
all good. So, how do people find out about you? And okay, you're going to say referrals, but truthfully, why do people select you? And as a result of that, or excuse me, as a predecessor to that, what's a question somebody should ask in order to select you or someone else, in order to know that there's a good fit? So, two parts. Number one, what's the question? And number two, how do you answer it? And therefore, the marketing that comes through that.
I don't market. I never have.
Well, more messaging, positioning, that stuff.
Yeah. So yeah. It's a real. You've stumped me in some ways. I don't know how I get all the work I get. In some ways it astounds me as well. It's like, oh, it's an awe. AWE is like this. Oh wow, this is unbelievable. I'm doing work that I'm passionate about. It's my purpose for sure, and work just comes to me. It's incredible. But I always say when I have a planning call or a, just let's jump on a call, make sure I'm the right fit. What I always say is something along the lines of, what would happen during the day that at the end of the day, you would have been really glad I was the facilitator? What is
Mm,
that magic wand for you? And what would make you feel grateful that you individually left with? Like, what do you need to have happen that you personally, separate from you, maybe as the moderator or someone who's tasked with finding a facilitator, what is it that you need that would have been like, wow, that was some big ROI. I wasn't even expecting that. So I ask questions like that. I also talk in a broad way about my style, which I shared with you, a teach and a facilitate. That's just who I am as a facilitator. So I talk about that throughout the course of the day. I never stay in a hole. It's not 8 people sitting and going in circles. That is never what happens. So sometimes I've had people in pairs. You don't actually get to hear the other person's response, because what I'm absolutely certain about is I share for me. Form is for me. I share for me to learn about me. So everything does not happen in the whole. And I think that triad and dyad engagement, or breaking people in fours and etc., really adds a level of like newness. And so my style, maybe I would explain, here's how I create agendas generally. If somebody wants an entire facilitated session on, for example, goal setting, of course I can do that, but I would be more focused on why that goal, right? So it depends what they're looking for. There are occasions that I say, I don't think I'm the right fit. Let me give you some wonderful referrals. There's other people that I think would be far better suited for what you're wanting to have happen. Because I'm not attached to that outcome. I'm not, I come from a place of abundance. And so if I'm not the right fit, let me find that fit for you. If the calendar doesn't work out because I book out so far, okay, let's give you some other people because I know you can't move that day. No worries. Let's find someone else. So I just have like a broad stroke like that, and I don't have a set of questions. I kind of feel into the person, so to speak, and um, and I just let the conversation unfold. It's not as if I have an agenda of 5 questions I ask them. I don't.
So, the time has flown by. I do want to get to this last question, and that is, I think what makes you unique is the family therapy component. Um, so, are you just watching people yell at each other and help them figure it out, or how does family therapy come into your facilitation style? We talked about it a little bit with parts work and all that, but just tell us a little more about how your hours, countless hours in clinical therapy have helped you, whether it's cognitive behavior therapy or whatever it might be. How has it helped? And because nobody wants a one-on-one session of, family therapy and individual therapy in front of a group. So how does that play in your style?
Forum is not therapy, and I'm not in a forum doing therapy. I truly
Right.
am not, and I say that uh, because when I introduce myself, I want to give some bullet points, like who is this person that's coming, and forum feels so therapeutic. It really does. There's a lot of overlap because what a therapist does, what a family therapist does, is look, again, going back to the system, who are you alone, the relationship with yourself, who are you in this system? But really, the magic piece here is if a forum understands, or I can help them understand that deep, resonant listening can heal like a therapist would, um, we're kind of doing the work anyway. We kind of
Mm.
are, right? Because a therapist doesn't give advice. Oh, you definitely should get divorced. You definitely should have another baby. You definitely should do. No, a therapist does not. What a therapist does is attune to the person speaking, and they're fully present for every single thing that is said, paying attention to the verbal and nonverbal, and either reflects that back, provides another alternative, like another perspective around that, which is what a forum would do, or receives that story because that person maybe had nowhere else to share it, which is a forum. So, do I take family systems into forum? Of course. And I trained so long ago that it's embedded in me. It's not I just think it's who I am now.
Mm.
With a forum, of course, I model things and I'll say, here's why I shared in that way. Here's how to be present focused as opposed to past or future. Here's how to be vulnerable. Here's a very subtle thing you can say. Um, Also, because forum is a family in my mind, that one of those F words, I do help people understand that the relationship piece that you have in forum actually for many is healthier than a family, going back to our shared agreements. And as a result, if I can like work out my kinks, if I can practice some things as I would with a therapist or etc., um, I can get better and heal some of my generational trauma or some of the pain patterns that have been established, and then practice them in form, I can then go be different in my own family. So there's overlap, but I definitely caution that this is not therapy. There's not because I'm a family therapist, yes, that's true when I come to form, but I'm not focused on, gosh, what happened to you when you were 7 that you reset it in that way. That's not in my head. What I'm mindful more of is my role in the system and that I'm holding space. I'm the calm neutral in that space when we think about neurobiology. People can yell, people can emote and scream and cry deep tears and grief. But what happens for me in my body? Yes, I have mirror neurons, but my body stays calm neutral. So I regulate the system. I'm very mindful of that. That is a family therapist, and that's certainly who I am as a facilitator in a forum. For sure, I'm mindful of that.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. I learned a ton, and
Thanks.
I'm sure our listeners have too. Thank you so much for being on here. Remind us your website, please.
It's patientshuts.com. Super easy. First,
That's with
last
two T's.
name.com. Yes, 2 T's. And Dan, separately, I did buy your book. I can't wait to read it. I'm taking a
Oh,
vacation next week, a little break, and I'm taking that book with me. So thank you.
good. Well, thank you for that. It's an easy read, I promise. Well, thanks again for your time, and Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.